In this video, we are going to set up the hitbox for our skeleton. And we're going to follow a similar process to how we did it for our player. So if we look at our player, there's a sprite and then the hitbox. We're going to do something very similar. So let's select our skeleton enemy, hop into the sprite, and we need to get a reference around our weapon here. So within this sprite, let's create a new sprite by going to 2D object, sprite. And for the sprite, just so we have a reference, go ahead and just select the circle with a dot, scroll all the way to the bottom and select the UI sprite. And set the order and layer to about 50. Okay, once we can see our sprite, let's go ahead and add a box 2D. So box collider 2D, as well as a rigid body 2D. And for the rigid body 2D, we want to make sure that gravity scale is set to 0 so that it's not falling. We're going to need the rigid body so that it can detect collisions. We want isTrigger to be set to true so that it can pass through objects so we can check for them later. And I want to compare my rigid body 2D settings to my player's 2D settings on the hitbox. So here it looks like all we did was gravity scale set to 0 and everything else is okay. So hopping back over here, let's call this hitbox. And now we're ready to begin animating this. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is select the sprite, go into the animation view, and let's get it so that we can actually see our frames. Go into the attack animation, and let's go to the first frame. And what we need to do now is we need to align our hitbox with that frame. And we have to do this for each frame. So the first thing we're going to do here is going to take our hitbox here, and we can drag it down, and we can just align it. And once we have our box collider, we can actually remove the sprite renderer. We don't need to see that. We just need this. All right, so here we are. We are going to move it down the hitbox. Say about here. Let's take that. All right, and then we want to rotate it. And we can thin it out. And stretch it. All right, so the idea here is that you just want to grasp it so that's the length of that, similar to how we did it with the player with the sword. All right, we can go ahead and let's stretch it out a bit on the Y here. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so once we have our first frame, we're good here, and then what we can do now is we can begin recording, and we're going to animate it with it. So there's the second frame. So here's our starting frame. So what we want to do here is with it selected, we're going to hop into record mode, and this is going to be our start frame. So we want to key this frame in for the box collider position. All right, so let's go ahead and just change one of these values here to 0. All right, and that's going to allow us to actually key it in, and we just need to position it back. And there we go. While we're in record mode, we're going to select the next frame, and now we need to adjust the box. So let's rotate it, and you'll see here it keys it in the dope sheet here inside the animation view, and go ahead and just move it up. Select the next frame, and we're going to keep doing the same process. Unfortunately, there's no easy way around this. We just have to do it for every frame. But it's going to allow us to get the most accurate hit detection. Select the next frame. And do a rotation. Alrighty. So I'm going to go through the rest of the frames here. I'm going to do a little bit of a speed run through so you can see how I'm doing it, but I recommend you pause the video, complete it, and I'll see you guys when you finish in the next video.